All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel here on YouTube. Thanks for being here, talking about real music for a few real people out here, just like you and just like me. All right, so Lou Graham is out there talking, I think, to a legendary Eddie Trunk about how his band Shadow King was sabotaged. Now, if you don't know about Shadow King, you should go and listen to it. It is an epic album from start to finish. Vivian Campbell, Kevin Valentine, and Bruce Turgeon and Lou Graham. Now, a couple of things to note. The musical headwinds at the time, this was 1991. So this was the last gasp of great music as far as rock was concerned, in my humble opinion. People disagree. Um, Maybe into 92 a little bit, maybe into 93 a little bit, but um, it was kind of the beginning of the end. And so a couple of things happened here. Number one, you had a Foreigner album called Unusual Heat that had just dropped and went nowhere because, again, the record label decided not to really promote it. I remember seeing that CD in what we used to call cutout bins, where they would take a little, piece out of it, like punch it and say, okay, this is not making us money, so we're just going to sell them off. And I probably bought one, and I still like Unusual Heat, even though the classic rock people, every time they rank Foreigner albums, they put that one at the bottom. It does not deserve to be at the bottom. Um, Singer Johnny Edwards did a great job, and I think it's a decent album. So you should go listen to it despite what the critics say about it. And Shadow King, equally brilliant and somewhat progressive a little bit. It just had a different feel to it. These guys were shooting for rock stations, they weren't shooting for top 40. Lou Graham, who was sick and tired of these schmaltzy ballads that Mick Jones was forcing him to sing, embarked on some real rock and roll with Shadow King. And so, yes, he was on with Eddie Trunk. Um, and this lineup basically just got together and started jamming. And then some song ideas came along and they started a band. Graham continued, noting the excitement at the record label surrounding Shadow King. We hoped that when the album came out, they would get behind it. Now, again, Atlantic Records already seeing some trends here. In addition to the headwinds in the rock genre, some interesting stuff was starting to happen with pop and top 40 music, which I think contributed to the end of good music across the board, or at least um, the whittling away slowly but surely of melody and things that people had taken for granted. Melodic tendencies started to erode during this period. You can hear it in pretty much every form of music. Um, Graham goes on to say, we recorded the album on Atlantic and we assumed it would get a lot of promotion and we would be promoted as a new band properly. It was never promoted properly, according to Lou Graham, and I would agree with that. Um, what happened to Unusual Heat actually happened to Shadow King. It wound up in discount bins with a little hole punched out of it, so you could buy it cheap. Now it's a bit of a collector's item. I'm pretty sure, though, Lou may have had that album reissued. It should be remastered, reissued, just for fans of this style of music. Um, there are a couple of very strong tracks. The lead-off track called What Would It Take? And the single called I Want You, which is probably the best song on it. but you can listen to Shadow King from start to finish if you're a rock fan, and you'll, I think, get something or enjoy all of the songs from it. It's a great album. Um, Lou Gramm said it never got the push from Atlantic Records. And the other thing was, I heard from a lot of people that they couldn't find copies of the album at the record store. Now, Graham thinks here that Mick Jones may have sabotaged Shadow King, which is interesting because after the failure of Unusual Heat, certainly, but if you're going to rank these albums, Shadow King versus Foreigner's Unusual Heat, um, they're kind of equal. Again, the record label uh, probably thought, okay, we tried Foreigner without Lou, it didn't work. But again, the record label was responsible. If they wanted to push something, look what happened to Bad Company with Brian Howe. They decided to push Bad Company without Brian Howe, and it worked. It did really well. Um, the Holy Water album, which came out not too long before Unusual Heat, or right around the same time, uh, I think sold a couple of million copies, maybe more than that. And that was all over rock stations. And I used to work in that business, so I know uh, the reps from the label would call and say, "Hey, did you add the new whatever yet? Did you add the new Bad Company?" I mean, we were playing multiple tracks from that. And if they had pushed on either Shadow King or on Unusual Heat, I would have played them both because the music fit very well with our classic rock format at the time. Um, so Lou Gramm goes on to say that he had a theory about Shadow King, and apparently they were ready to do a world tour to support the album. But he had a theory. I was told that just before the album came out, Mick Jones had a talk with Ahmet Erdogan, the chairman of Warner Electric Atlantic, what was known as WEA, and whoever at the time was the president of Atlantic, and told them that if Shadow King achieved success, then Lou will never come back with Foreigner. So it's extortion. And that may just be a statement like, okay, if Shadow King does well, he may be thinking there's no reason for Lou to come back to Foreigner. So I guess both of them thought that Lou would come back to Foreigner, both Mick Jones and Lou Gramm. By the way, um, Lou Gramm did return to Foreigner the following year. So it's kind of a weird love hate, excuse me, love hate relationship between Lou Gramm and Mick Jones. It's kind of weird. Um, and just as a little observation here, with Mick Jones being rather sick these days, I don't know if the constant Mick Jones did this and Mick Jones did that. I don't know if that's a good look at this stage. But I guess if you want to know the truth about things, it's fine. But I've noticed that everything seems to be Mick Jones's fault. And I don't think that's true. I think Mick Jones is a genius. It's sad that he's obviously got advanced, was it Alzheimer's at this point or Parkinson's? Um, and so it's not good. It's not good news. And so I would just, play this straight. Shadow King was a great band. Unusual Heat was a decent album, but Foreigner without Lou Gramm for a lot of people is not Foreigner. And the fact that they tried this back in 1990 and it didn't work is a good indication that even though Kelly Hansen has done a good job singing these songs, there are a lot of people out here who prefer Foreigner with Lou Gramm, even the current version of Lou Gramm, which is very different. Before doing this video, You go listen to Shadow King, and Lou is singing his butt off, and it's just a different voice, and it's sad. And this is aging, this is mortality. Um, I don't know if rock was meant to be this 50 or 60-year adventure for some of these bands, or at least maybe 30, maybe 40 years you can do this if you're really fortunate and your voice holds up. Mickey Thomas continues to impress me at his age. And there are a few other singers. John Anderson, for his age, is incredible. But he's not singing a rough and tumble type of vocal. He's singing more of this lighter falsetto kind of sound, which he's basically sung his whole life. So his voice is probably in good shape. Before I go, if you're a fan of Foreigner or Bad Company, you should really check out Lone Rider. This is called Down in the Dust, and just superb. This is one of my favorite current melodic rock bands. You could even call this a classic rock band because that's really what it is, featuring Steve Overland and the great Simon Kirke playing drums with the addition of Steve Mann on the Hammond B3. Just a phenomenal and somewhat derivative version of what Bad Company could be today if they were still around. So, courtesy of our friends over at Escape Music. Um, Thanks for watching these videos. By the way, if you haven't, please subscribe. I'm rebuilding the platform. I'm locked out of the other channel, so I can't get in there to do anything anymore. And yes, if you want to be a patron or if you want to help out with Buy Me a Coffee, there will be links. Those links have changed. So use the new links to get to those locations if you'd like to support the channel. Again, my name is Dave. Thanks for watching. God bless everyone, and I will see you soon.